God kept you alive after 60. Here's the powerful reason no one told you. If you are listening to this right now and you are over 60 years old, I want you to pause for a moment and truly hear what I am about to say. You are still here because God intentionally kept you alive, not by chance, not by accident, not because time simply moved forward. You are breathing today because heaven decided your story is not finished yet. The world quietly sends a message to people after 60. It says your best years are behind you. It says your strength is fading, your influence is smaller, your usefulness is limited. But God has never measured life the way the world does. God does not count years to determine value. He counts purpose, and purpose does not expire with age. You have lived long enough to know that life is not easy. You have survived things you never imagined you would survive. You have walked through loss, disappointment, sickness, fear, unanswered prayers, and moments when you wondered if God had forgotten you. Yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still believing, even if your faith carries scars now. That alone tells us something powerful. God does not preserve life without intention. Every extra year, every additional season, every morning you wake up is evidence that there is still something God wants to do in you and through you. Not something small, not something meaningless, something eternal. This message is not about looking backward with regret or wishing you were younger. This is about understanding why God carried you this far and what it means right now. Because if God kept you alive after 60, then your life is not winding down. It is being refined. And what comes next may be quieter, but it is deeper, stronger, and more impactful than you realize. Part 1. God kept you alive because your testimony is now powerful. When you were younger, you likely believed that faith was proven by movement, by how much you could do, how much you could build, how hard you could push forward. You measured purpose by progress and value by visibility. You assumed that strength meant usefulness and that slowing down meant falling behind. But life, over many years, has gently and sometimes painfully corrected that belief. Faith is not proven by speed. It is proven by staying. After 60 years of living, your testimony is no longer something you prepare or perform. It is something you embody. It shows up in the way you respond when trouble comes, in the calm you carry into difficult conversations, in the steadiness of your spirit when others feel overwhelmed. You have lived long enough to know that faith is not about avoiding pain, disappointment, or loss. It is about trusting God while walking straight through them, without letting them steal your soul. You have witnessed how fragile life truly is. You remember moments when everything changed in an instant. A phone call that rewrote your future. A medical diagnosis that made time stand still. A loss that left a permanent emptiness. A betrayal that shattered trust. A dream you prayed for that never arrived. These moments did not just happen to you. They shaped you. They marked you. And yet, through every one of them, God did not abandon you. There were seasons when your prayers were raw and unpolished. Seasons when you asked God questions you never imagined you would ask. Seasons when you felt strong doubt alongside genuine faith. You may have wondered whether God was silent, whether he was distant, or whether your faith had failed. But even in those moments, God was carrying you forward. Even when answers did not come, grace did. Your testimony is powerful now because it is honest. It is not built on perfect outcomes or easy victories. It is built on perseverance. It is built on waking up again after heartbreak, on trusting God when your understanding had limits, on choosing faith when walking away would have felt easier. This kind of testimony cannot be learned quickly. It is formed slowly, through years of living real life with God. You have buried dreams you once believed were certain. You have released plans you worked hard to protect. You have watched people you loved change, leave or pass away, and still, God kept you alive, not because you were strong enough, but because he was faithful enough. Your survival is not accidental, it is evidence. Your life now speaks to people who are afraid of the future. It speaks to those who fear aging, loss, weakness, and uncertainty. Without needing to explain yourself, you show them that faith can survive disappointment, that waiting does not mean being forgotten, that God can still be trusted even when life does not turn out as expected. There are younger people watching you, whether you know it or not. They are watching how you grieve, how you talk about God after unanswered prayers, how you hold on to faith without needing attention or approval. They need to see someone who proves that walking with God does not guarantee comfort, but it does guarantee meaning. God kept you alive because your testimony now carries depth instead of noise, wisdom instead of urgency, stability instead of striving. You no longer need to prove anything. Your life itself speaks. Your patience teaches others how to wait. Your peace teaches others how to trust. Your endurance teaches others how to continue when giving up feels tempting. Even when you feel overlooked or slower than before, heaven does not measure impact the way the world does. God preserved you because your testimony is still needed. It reminds others that faith does not weaken with time. It matures, that God does not abandon his people in later chapters, that he finishes what he starts. You are still here because your life is still revealing who God truly is. Part 2. God kept you alive because your prayers have greater authority. The way you pray now is not the way you prayed decades ago. When you were younger, prayer often came from urgency. You wanted answers quickly. You wanted solutions immediately. You wanted God to remove discomfort as fast as possible. But years of walking with God have taught you something sacred. God is not rushed, and he is never late. You have prayed through seasons where nothing could be fixed easily. You have prayed in hospital rooms where hope felt fragile. You have prayed through financial uncertainty, broken relationships, and family situations beyond your control. You have prayed for children and grandchildren knowing you could not protect them from every danger. You have prayed when faith felt strong, and you have prayed when faith felt thin. You have prayed with confidence, and you have prayed with surrender. You have prayed with words, and you have prayed with silence. There were moments when all you could offer God was your presence and your tears. Those prayers were not wasted. They shaped you, they softened you, they deepened your understanding of who God truly is. Over time, you learned that prayer is not about convincing God to act. It is about aligning your heart with his wisdom. You learned that sometimes God changes circumstances, and sometimes he changes the person praying. You learned that waiting is not punishment. It is preparation. Now your prayers carry maturity. They are not frantic. They are grounded. They are not loud, but they are steady. You know when to ask boldly and when to rest quietly. You know that God's will is not always easy, but it is always good. That understanding gives your prayers authority. God kept you alive because your prayers now carry history. They carry memories of God's past faithfulness. They carry lessons learned through disappointment. They carry humility formed by realizing how little control you truly have. When you pray now, you pray as someone who knows God personally, not just spiritually. You may pray alone, quietly, unseen by others, but heaven recognizes your voice. There is authority in prayers spoken by someone who has remained faithful through time. Your prayers reach places your body cannot. They protect people without them ever knowing it. They bring peace into chaos. They invite God's presence into situations you may never fully understand. There is power in prayers shaped by endurance. There is strength in prayers rooted in surrender. There is authority in prayers spoken by a heart that has learned to trust God, even when outcomes are uncertain. God kept you alive because the world still needs prayers like yours. Prayers that are patient, prayers that are wise, prayers that do not demand control but trust God's timing, prayers that come from a lifetime of walking with him. Never believe that your prayers matter less now. They matter more than ever. They are deeper, steadier, and stronger. And God preserved your life because the prayers you pray today still move heaven, even when you cannot see the results yet. Part 3. God kept you alive because your wisdom is needed more than ever. There is a kind of wisdom that cannot be rushed into existence. It cannot be downloaded, copied, or borrowed from someone else's life. It cannot be formed in comfort or learned through shortcuts. It is built slowly, year by year, through obedience, mistakes, consequences, repentance, patience, and grace. After 60 years of living, you carry this wisdom inside you, whether you feel confident about it or not. It lives in you because you paid for it with time. When you were younger, you wanted answers. You wanted certainty. You wanted to know which decision would work, which path would lead to success, which relationship would last, which prayer would be answered quickly. You wanted clarity before commitment. But life taught you that wisdom does not always arrive before action. Often it arrives after obedience, after failure, after reflection. You learned that some lessons only come once you have walked the road and looked back. You now understand things that once confused you. You understand that not every open door is meant to be entered, and not every closed door is rejection. You understand that timing matters more than talent, and character matters more than opportunity. You understand that rushing almost always creates damage, and waiting often brings protection. These are lessons that cannot be taught quickly. They must be lived. You have learned to read people differently. You know now that anger often hides fear, that pride often hides insecurity, and that silence often hides pain. You understand that most people are fighting battles you cannot see. That knowledge makes you gentler, slower to judge, and quicker to show grace. This wisdom came at a cost. It came through misunderstandings, broken relationships, regret, and forgiveness. God allowed you to live through mistakes not to shame you, but to shape you. Some choices taught you what not to do. Some failures taught you humility. Some disappointments taught you discernment. You learned that being right does not always heal, but being kind often does. That lesson alone is worth decades. God kept you alive because this kind of wisdom is urgently needed in the world right now. We live in a generation that speaks loudly but listens little. A generation that moves fast but reflects slowly. A generation drowning in information yet starving for understanding. People know facts, but they lack perspective. They know how to speak, but they do not know how to weigh consequences. You carry perspective that only time can produce. You know how quickly life changes. You know how fragile health is. You know how easily priorities can shift after loss. You know what truly matters when everything else is stripped away. You know that peace is more valuable than applause, that faithfulness outlasts popularity, and that integrity is worth protecting even when it costs you something. You may feel that your voice is not as welcomed in a culture obsessed with youth and speed. You may feel overlooked, ignored, or dismissed. But God does not measure wisdom by trends. He measures it by truth. He preserved you because there are conversations that require depth, not excitement. There are moments that require discernment, not opinions. There are lives that need guidance, not pressure. Your wisdom helps others slow down before they destroy something valuable. It helps them think before making irreversible decisions. It helps them understand that life has seasons, that failure is not final, and that God can redeem what looks wasted. When you speak from your life, you are not offering theories. You are offering reality shaped by decades of walking with God. Even when you speak very little, your life still teaches. The way you respond to disappointment teaches resilience. The way you forgive teaches grace. The way you trust God without needing explanations teaches faith. People learn from how you endure, not just from what you say. God kept you alive because your wisdom is still working. It is still protecting others, still guiding hearts, still revealing truth. Even if you never see the full impact, heaven sees it clearly. Your years were not wasted. They were invested for a purpose larger than you may ever fully understand. Part 4. God kept you alive because your purpose has not ended. One of the most dangerous lies people begin to believe as they grow older is that their purpose has expired, that the most meaningful work is behind them, that their role now is simply to step aside and wait. But God has never worked according to expiration dates. Purpose does not disappear when strength changes. It transforms. Your purpose today may look very different from what it once was. You may not be building businesses, raising children, leading teams, or moving at the pace you once did. You may feel slower, quieter, less visible, but visibility has never been God's measurement for significance. In fact, some of God's most important work happens quietly, through people who no longer need recognition. God kept you alive because there is still fruit to bear. Not the fruit of speed, achievement, or applause, but the fruit of character, patience that steadies others, kindness that heals unseen wounds, faithfulness that reassures fearful hearts, perseverance that shows others how to endure without bitterness. These fruits cannot be rushed, and only those who live long enough can carry them fully. At this stage of life, purpose often moves through presence rather than performance. A conversation at the right moment, a word spoken with wisdom, a prayer prayed consistently over years, a calm presence during chaos. These moments may look small, but they often shape lives more deeply than dramatic actions ever could. You now influence without forcing, guide without controlling, and serve without needing credit. God often entrusts his deepest work to those who no longer need to be seen. He kept you alive because your obedience still matters, even when no one applauds it. Your presence can bring peace into a room. Your steadiness can calm anxious hearts. Your faith can anchor others when their world feels unstable. Purpose now is not about doing more. It is about being faithful with what God places in front of you each day. You may feel less needed by the world, but you are not less needed by God. God often slows his servants so their impact can deepen. He removes noise so their lives can speak more clearly. He strips away distractions, so what remains is pure and meaningful. Your purpose now may be to mentor quietly, to encourage faithfully, to pray persistently, to model endurance, or simply to remain steadfast when others grow weary. These are not small callings. They are essential ones. Families, churches, and communities are steadied by lives like yours. God uses your faithfulness to remind others that he does not abandon his people with age, that he does not discard those who have walked with him for decades, that the later chapters of life still carry meaning, influence, and divine purpose. You are still here because there is still something God wants to express through you. Purpose did not fade with time. It matured, and God preserved your life because this season too is part of his plan. Part 5. God kept you alive because you are a living sign of his faithfulness. If you have reached this season of life, and you are still here, still breathing, still waking up to face another day, then your life itself has become a testimony. You may not feel important by the world's standards anymore. You may feel quieter, slower, less visible, but before God, your continued life is a living sign that his faithfulness does not fade with time. You have lived long enough to see the world for what it really is. You have seen promises made with confidence and broken without apology. You have seen systems that looked permanent collapse. You have seen leaders rise with great words and fall with great failure. You have watched trends change, values shift, and truths once held firmly become questioned or abandoned. Yet through all those changes, one thing remains steady: God never left you. Your life quietly proves that God does not abandon his people when the journey becomes long. He does not walk away when strength fades. He does not withdraw when usefulness looks different than it once did. He does not lose interest when applause disappears and life slows down. He stays faithful when bodies weaken, when routines become repetitive, and when days feel less dramatic than they once were. The fact that you are still here is not random. It is a declaration of His covenant faithfulness. You are a living sign that faith can survive disappointment. You are proof that belief does not collapse when prayers take years instead of days. You are evidence that trusting God does not require full understanding or perfect outcomes. Many people believe faith only works when life is smooth and predictable. Your life quietly declares a deeper truth, that faith still works when life is painful, uncertain, slow, and unfinished. You have endured losses that permanently changed you. You have said goodbye to people you never imagined living without. You have carried grief that never fully disappeared, only learned to be carried differently. You have walked through seasons when loneliness felt heavier than crowds, when silence felt louder than noise, when memories were both comforting and painful. You have faced sickness, weakness, and moments when your own body reminded you that time had passed. And still, you kept going. Still, you prayed. Still, you trusted God enough to take one more breath, one more step, one more day. That kind of endurance cannot be taught quickly. It cannot be borrowed from someone else's story. It can only be lived. God kept you alive so others could see what long obedience looks like. Not obedience fueled by excitement, but obedience shaped by endurance. Not belief built on emotion, but belief anchored in truth. Your faith may be quieter now, but it is stronger because it has been tested by real life. You are a sign to younger generations who are afraid of aging, afraid of suffering, afraid of commitment. When they look at you, they see that life does not end when youth fades. They see that God remains present through every season, not just the exciting ones. They see that faith does not weaken with time. It matures, steadies, and deepens. Even your limitations now speak loudly. They remind others that God's strength does not depend on human ability. They show that His presence matters more than performance. The way you accept help, the way you slow down, the way you trust God when control slips away, all of this reveals grace in ways strength never could. You may feel invisible in this season. You may feel like your voice no longer carries weight in a fast-moving world, but heaven sees you clearly. Heaven sees your faithfulness, your endurance, your quiet trust. God kept you alive because your life still points people toward Him. You are living proof that He is faithful to the very end. Conclusion: God kept you alive because your story is not over. If you are still alive, then God is still working. That truth is simple, but it is powerful. God does not preserve life without intention, and He does not allow time to continue without purpose. Every morning you wake up is not an accident. It is a quiet decision made by heaven that your life is still needed on this earth. This season of your life is not a mistake, a delay, or a forgotten chapter. It is not a waiting room where nothing matters anymore. It is a meaningful part of your story, written with depth, wisdom, and quiet strength. You may feel that life has slowed down, but slowing down does not mean God has stopped. Often it is in the slower seasons that His work goes deeper. You may no longer do what you once did, but you are someone you once were not. You carry compassion you did not have before. You carry patience that only comes from endurance. You carry faith that has been tested and refined. These things are not small. They are eternal. Your prayers still reach heaven. They still matter. Your faith still steadies others, even when you do not realize it. Your presence still brings peace, simply because you have learned how to trust God in ways only time can teach. Even when you feel unnoticed by the world, heaven notices every quiet act of faithfulness. Do not measure this season by what you have lost. Measure it by what God has built within you. A heart shaped by grace, a life refined by suffering, a spirit anchored in hope. That kind of life speaks louder than achievement ever could. God kept you alive after 60 because your life is still teaching. It is still showing others how to endure when life is hard, how to trust when answers are slow, and how to remain faithful when the road is long. Your story is not finished yet. God is still writing through your days, even now. So keep trusting Him. Keep praying, even when words are few. Keep loving, even when it costs you. Keep standing, even when you feel tired. This chapter matters more than you know, and the same God who carried you through every season before will carry you faithfully until the story He is writing through your life is complete.